When we think of World War II, we usually picture soldiers storming beaches, tanks rolling across Europe, and supply trucks struggling through mud and snow. But what rarely gets attention is the quiet, personal battle against the cold. Frostbite, trench foot, and hypothermia were constant threats. In extreme winter campaigns like the Battle of the Bulge or the harsh Eastern Front, even the toughest soldiers were at risk. Yet amidst all the chaos, soldiers discovered a simple, low-tech boot hack that prevented frostbite and kept feet alive when modern equipment often failed. This lost survival trick wasn't flashy, but it saved countless toes and lives, and remarkably, it still works today for hikers, campers, and anyone facing freezing conditions. The problem: boots and frostbite. Standard military boots were functional, but far from perfect. Leather was stiff and slow to dry, linings were thin, and insulation was minimal. Extended exposure to snow, ice, and wet conditions often resulted in frostbite, trench foot, or painfully frozen feet that could make soldiers ineffective. Thick socks and multiple layers helped, but movement and wetness could quickly negate their benefits. Soldiers needed a solution that didn't rely on scarce resources or complex materials. The World War II boot hack was simple. Create a flexible, insulating layer between the foot and the boot using materials at hand. Soldiers used items such as newspaper, cotton rags, or even dried moss and straw. The goal was to trap air between layers and create a buffer against cold surfaces. The material needed to be lightweight, compressible, and easy to replace, since it could become damp. Soldiers learned that by wrapping or stuffing these materials inside their boots, they could dramatically reduce heat loss and protect toes from frostbite. Cold travels quickly through metal or dense leather, but it moves much slower through air pockets. When soldiers stuffed boots with newspaper or straw, the trapped air acted as a natural insulator. This principle is the same behind modern thermal gear. Layers of air between insulating materials retain heat. The difference was that World War II soldiers adapted to extreme conditions with whatever was immediately available. This hack didn't rely on electricity, special fibers, or heavy equipment. It relied on ingenuity and understanding how heat escapes from the body. First, a clean sock was worn to wick moisture from the foot. Moisture is the enemy in freezing conditions, as it conducts heat away from the skin. Next, a few sheets of crumpled newspaper or a cloth wrap were added inside the boot. The material was packed around the foot but not overly tight, allowing air pockets to form. Then the soldier put on the standard military boot, lacing it snugly without compressing the insulation. And of course, daily checks were crucial. Wet material was replaced with dry, or improvised materials were swapped to maintain effectiveness. Soldiers often combined this technique with proper sock layering, wool socks closest to the foot and cotton or extra wool on top, to maximize insulation and wick away moisture. They also learned to avoid over-tightening boots, which crushed air pockets and reduced insulation. What makes this World War II boot hack timeless is its simplicity. Modern campers, hikers, and survivalists can use the same approach. If your boots are wet, cold, or inadequate for the terrain, a layer of newspaper, dry cloth, or moss can significantly reduce heat loss. Combine it with wool or moisture-wicking socks, and you have a low-cost, highly effective solution that doesn't rely on fancy gear. This technique is particularly valuable in situations where gear fails, budgets are tight, or electricity and heated boots aren't available. During the Second World War, soldiers dealt with scarcity, danger, and extreme conditions every single day. They couldn't, rely on the latest synthetic insulation or any high-tech solutions. Instead, they experimented, observed, and adapted as best they could. The boot hack is a great example of practical problem-solving under pressure. It serves as a reminder to modern audiences that sometimes low-tech solutions are actually more reliable than expensive gear, especially when survival depends on understanding materials and physics, rather than relying solely on brand-new equipment. This lost World War II survival trick teaches a larger lesson. Warmth and survival aren't just about what you own. They're about how you use what you have. Trapped air, layered insulation, moisture control, and thoughtful maintenance can actually be more effective than high-end gear left unused or, mismanaged. It encourages self-reliance and observation, skills that were absolutely critical on the battlefield and honestly remain essential today. The World War II boot hack is a perfect example of forgotten knowledge that still holds value. Soldiers used simple, accessible materials to prevent frostbite and protect their feet under extreme conditions. It was lightweight, cheap, and effective, relying on the physics of trapped air and careful layering rather than expensive materials. Modern survivalists, hikers, or really anyone preparing for cold conditions can adopt this technique immediately. It's a lesson in ingenuity, resourcefulness, and the enduring wisdom of those who survived history's harshest winters. By studying these practical methods, we not only honor the soldiers who endured unimaginable conditions, but also equip ourselves with simple, reliable tools that could save lives today. Whether you're trekking in the wilderness, facing winter storms, or just curious about World War II survival secrets, this lost trick is as relevant now as it was 8 decades ago. Subscribe to Strange History to uncover more forgotten survival strategies, practical wartime hacks, and historical lessons that continue to impact modern survival and preparedness. Share this episode with friends and family who want to learn real-world survival knowledge tested under extreme conditions.